these forests were completely buried, died, and millions of years later, rebuilt 3 different times. They have found 3 different elevations of forest. And it's pretty remarkable. Now in Caro, they're still learning. That's a new quarry. They're still trying to figure out and how that started. Oh my gosh, it's the woman from the New York State Museum, who I'm very good friends with, who's a paleobotanist, Linda Hernick. She was at that quarry in Caro looking for liverworts, extinct liverworts, fossilized liverworts. These little plants. I don't even know really what they are that much. But she was very excited about doing her thesis on these liverworts, and they kept going back to this quarry because they kept finding them. Well, she brought Chuck Verstraeten with her, who is the New York State geologist right now. And he all of a sudden realized that there was these channels going out from a center point. They were going out in all these different directions. And he started clearing they were all filled with silt and dirt. And he started cleaning out these channels and realized, oh my gosh, this is a tree root system. And then they just started expanding this quarry, and they found all these different trees. And they could tell which ones they were from the roots.
The bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panther Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast.
Oh boy.
Oh, dude. So, I showed you my schedule, how crazy I've been in Utah. You made talks about my dentist stuff. So I've been having dental problems. I've had severe pain in my fillings, and I might seem a little off today. So I'm sorry. I don't like
All right,
dentists.
that's fine, Stosh. We'll give you a pass this time. We won't sound the shame alarm, but maybe next week.
It's not fun. I don't know if
it's part of getting older. As you get older, you accumulate aches, pains, soreness, the baggage of life.
Yes. All right. Screw that. I ain't going to do that crap. So, Ted, you've been, we keep in touch with each other more often now that you're on the show. I hear you've been getting a lot of listener feedback. I don't get that much because I don't go out on the weekends. You have, though.
All right. So you want to talk about listener feedback? Yeah. I mean, some people have reached out to me on social media, but what was funny is, on Saturday, as we were finishing up our hike in the Catskills, I saw a fellow walking across the bridge over the East Branch of the Neversink River. And he was fairly distinguished looking in terms of his longer hair, really his long beard. He kind of looked like he was with ZZ Top, if anybody remembers who ZZ Top is. And I recognized him as Bear from the podcast you did with him.
Oh, no way, Bear.
Yeah, right. So it was Bear and Family Bear. Mrs. Bear was there. The young bear cubs were hiking with them. So it was the Bear family of 4. And I told him I recognized him from the podcast. And then I'm not sure how it came about, but Mrs. Bear said, "Oh, yeah, I recognize your voice," referring to me, from the podcast. So we had a nice chat. She's enjoying the podcast more and more, particularly, and she admitted this now that I'm on the show. And she and others that day, frankly, wanted my autograph. So I'm going to start carrying around a black Sharpie with me and autographing Nalgene bottles, maybe autographing people's backpacks, doing selfies. What's so funny? I'm serious about this. I am. I think I've reached that level of popularity. I'm going to have some Sharpies, autograph stuff, maybe like at the popular parking areas. I'll sell some merch.
Nice.
Do I have your approval, or do I have to have my lawyers get a hold of your lawyers to work these arrangements out?
Well, you're going to have to get a hold of my lawyer. He's pretty well known, but I think you can contact him pretty quickly.
Is he the Dewey, the Cheatman, or the Howe? Which one is he of that firm? Is that your firm, Dewey, Cheatman, or Howe?
He's the Harvey Spencer of everybody.
Oh, okay. Oh, Harvey Spencer. Okay. So they say my lawyer put the lit in litigation.
Correct. You're about to get lit. God, I love that show. So yeah, well, that's good to hear, man. And I got to admit, I enjoy your presence on here, and it's more entertaining. It's more helpful that I don't get to just sit here and talk by myself and then try to spark up that conversation between two people that I don't know. Like I don't know this person that here and there, but it's really good to have you. I'm glad you're getting that positive feedback. You're now more famous than you once were on Instagram.
That's right. And I'm going to keep it that way. That's my aim.
Five more followers.
Yeah, right. So, but in part, I'm doing it to help you, and I appreciate all the effort you put into everything you volunteer for. But also, I have this impression that a lot of people, when they set out on Saturday or Sunday morning, queue up the podcast, and that's what they're listening to on their drive up. So, trying to just kind of help it be more enjoyable, more upbeat, nice vibe to it, and kind of get that mountain spirit heated up in them to get up here and hike.
You have that voice. I don't know. It's
yeah. Well, like I spent years in vocal training for this voice. I really wanted to take over for John Sterling and the broadcast the Yankee games, but I just don't have enough color for that.
I'm pretty sure they had you first in line for the DEC podcast, and then what happened? I stole you.
Yeah, I turned down their first offer, so I'm waiting for them to get back to me. There's good perks with that. I get free mountain rescue. I don't have to buy permits at parking areas, and
you get away with littering, and
I get to hike with a ranger whenever I want to. So those are benefits to the job.
Put some Adirondack chairs in the viewpoints,
Yeah, I actually, I was going to send you a picture. I'm guilty of assembling 2 Adirondack chairs with my wife over the weekend, but we're not putting them on a mountaintop in the Adirondacks. They will firmly be planted in our backyard.
Well, good for you. Good for you. So, well, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear. I like, that's my point, to get the podcast out and get the podcast, for people who love the Catskills and such like that. So it's happening. I wouldn't say like as fast as other podcasts are, but it's the Catskills. I didn't think it would blossom like the good old amazing, absolute stunning Joe Rogan podcast or the other podcasts that flow in the Northeast.
Speak for yourself, Joe. I'm coming after you.
Go right ahead, please. Go after him and see what he does. He'll probably hit you with some straight up facts. I'm not going to say anything. Unfortunate news. We move on to some news. An Adirondack forest ranger has passed away while ice climbing in Alaska. Now, this happened April 27th, not too long ago, like 3 days ago from this recording. So Robbie Meskis passed away, 52 years old, Adirondack forest ranger in Denali National Park while climbing an 8,400 peak mountain in Denali. It was a very, very tough climb. It's called the Escalator, a steep 5,000 foot climb. You think these technical climbs in the Catskills, 5,000 ice climbing. And, Robbie was an amazing forest ranger in the Adirondacks, and they have been she's been serving as a forest ranger since 1999, so 25 years. And everything she has done has been dedicated 100% to the community, to the Adirondacks, to the ranger system. And I met Robbie when I was going up to to Marcy, so Summit Marcy one time, and she was actually like, you know where you're going? I'm just like, hell yeah, I do. I'm a Catskill hiker and stuff like that. She's like, well, this is different than the Catskills. I'm just like, trust me, I know what I'm doing. But no, we had a good conversation, and she was very awesome. And she wasn't worried about what I was doing. She knew that I had my 55-pound pack on me for a 2-day hike, and she was like, oh wow, this guy's a little over prepared. I'll let him go. But it was great to talk to her. But would say in this, I remember seeing on her social media post that one time she, a couple days ago, she was waiting out a storm up in Alaska in a tent. So I was like, I was a little concerned, and I was like, oh, okay. So she's probably in a crazy area, but I didn't know she was ice climbing. But she's been part of hundreds of searches in the Adirondacks, hiker snowstorms. One recent search that she had where she found a guy going off the side of Mount Marcy, and luckily found him and recorded it. It was amazing stuff. And, I supported all her stuff that she did on social media. She was a very high presence of social media, high presence of LGBTQT. And it was absolutely fascinating just to hear her stories and such. So a big loss to the ranger community in the New York State, to the world in general, of how amazing she was to our DEC family here in New York State. So huge loss. What do you think?
Well, it's obviously very sad, very tragic. Sometimes people, this is where they bring up, that this person died doing something that she loved.
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't take away from the fact that it's a very sad, tragic event. And you just hope that her suffering in the final moments of her life, wasn't that much. So,
yeah.
So you really know how to put me in a solemn moment, and right. that's about as much as I can say.
So the one thing that sucked even more is that her partner, Melissa Orchesky, was there with her, and she actually survived the fall. They both fell about 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
In the Park Service, and they were airlifted out. Melissa was airlifted out on Friday morning, which was 3 days ago, which was the 27th. Critical condition. I haven't heard of anything about that yet. So have you, Ted?
I haven't, and I did mean to check up on it, but I didn't have the time. But what I thought was interesting is that the fall was witnessed by some other climbers that were further up on the escalator. They descended down to a level, and actually, I guess they built like a cave in the snowpack to spend the night and wait for a rescue.
Wow. Awesome. Once again, hikers looking out for other hikers, ice climbers looking out for other ice climbers. That's, the decision that you want from other people is to, help you out when you're in that need. And especially on Denali, which one of the most unpredictable mountains in the world, besides like K2, people take weeks to go up that stuff. And, it's just insane to hear about this. And, tragic news to the DEC community and to the Rangers community, because Robbie was an awesome powerhouse in helping the Adirondacks be a better place, and was always the front runner in every one of these rescues. Be like, you know what, I'll kick some ass and I'll do this. So crazy, horrible loss. So let's move on to some stuff. So, we give our condolences to the family, to the DEC, Ranger friends, and everybody who has known Robbie. Really, really huge loss. So I got this sent by my friend, Michelle, and it is actually some amazing piece of work, that one of the most amazing written works I've ever seen. This has come from Cat Country 107.3. So I don't know how somebody from a freaking radio station could write this about. So Michelle, I thank you for sending me this. So Jersey mom steps between her 2-year-old child and a mountain lion in Jersey. Let's just say that. I read this, and I think I've read this about 8 times, and I still can't keep understanding. So in Stratton, New Jersey, which is northern New Jersey, located more towards like the New Jersey, New York border, some mother stepped in between her 2-year-old and a mountain lion. So the thing that happened, apparently she stepped in between it, and her kid yelled, "That's a fucking mountain lion."
Her 2-year-old kid yelled that.
2.5. All right. 2.5.
Right.
Well beyond 2.
It's an extra 6 months makes the difference, I suppose.
Exactly. I was just like, yeah, definitely that kid yelled that 2 a.m. in the morning,
Mhm.
2 a.m. Let's just say that at 2 a.m., the kid ran out there out of a dead sleep and said was standing mere feet from us. And I planted a glass and said, my 2-year-old yelled out, "That's a fucking mountain lion." Sorry,
Okay.
Kristen, about this. I might bleep that out because Kristen's a good woman. But
Yeah.
this let's her name is Gigi C. Reached out. So Gigi C, that's her name.
Gigi C is the mother
Yes.
of the 2.5-year-old toddler and the toddler is standing between the mountain lion and mom. Okay. And
Is that a
in
rapper name? Gigi C?
Yeah, I don't know
Right?
if I don't know. Gigi C. Yeah, I don't think I've met Gigi C, but yeah. So,
All right,
so
I got to look
mom
up where this is.
yeah. Well, it's in northern New Jersey, the Sussex County, western, maybe from Sussex County area. I'm somewhat familiar with that area.
Of course you are.
Yeah. I just want to ask you, Stash, you actually believe this is a true story?
Absolutely freaking not.
Okay.
Did you see the whole story? She said that the person
Yeah.
that wrote this story says she's a mountain lion whisperer.
Yeah. Well, who, I mean, to all the parents out there, who is strapping the car seat into their car to take their toddler out for a drive at 2 a.m. in the morning? Really? Don't you already have the car seat in the car? I know when my children were young, it's not like we swapped the car seat from one car to the other. You get it in the car, it stays in the car. You're not taking it in and out. So it doesn't explain in the story why it is she's out there at 2 a.m. putting the car seat in the car, right?
Right.
And why this is happening while you're putting the car seat in the car, presumably for your child's safety. You're not paying attention to your child. Your child starts walking up the driveway, up this hill, and then to the mountain lion. Okay. So she lets, what was her name? GZC? She lets her child.
GDC.
GGC. We're getting her on the show just because we like saying her name. She'll be your new co-host. I'll resign. And GGC turns around. She sees her child. She sees the mountain lion. What does her kid say again? What is that? The 2 and 8?
That's a mountain lion.
That's like the kid has seen them before at on the Barney show? Barney and Friends?
Bluey,
I don't know.
maybe?
Yeah. I don't have answers for any of this. So yeah, I'm surprised we bring this on the show. What type of news is this? It's fake news. Is that what we're turning this show? Is this what we're doing to get ratings, Stosh? Is we're going to start reporting bits like this as if they're the news?
Have you listened to my shows before? You know this is all about mountain lions.
I know. I sent you at one time. I don't think you read it, but I did send you. Didn't you get that whole chapter from a book about mountain lions and the Shawangunk Mountains or the Shawangunk Ridge?
I did.
Yeah.
I've read about that, and I've read about them, of course, up in the Beaverkill area.
Mm-hmm. And that was legit fact-based, scientific evidence proof that, back at the turn of the last century, mountain lions in the Shawangunk Ridge.
Yeah. And this is just absolutely hilarious. I cried no at the very top of my point, at which the lion looked up at me and swiftly turned to run into the forest. I'll never forget the clear vision I've had of her as she ran away, her muscular legs and her long trailing behind her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it, and the funny thing is, this is up once again, Stillwater, like Delaware Gap. I would expect somebody named Jizzy C being more towards the Jersey Shore. I mean,
yeah, well, maybe she was on her way back. But this reminds me, Stosh, we'll see if you remember this, when I sent you that faux news clip last year, I think it was, about the mountain lion in the Catskills that the Rangers had reported to them. Don't you remember? And you actually contacted the Rangers about it.
Did I? What?
Yeah, don't you remember? I sent you I made up this fake news clip in the Ranger report about a mountain lion sighting.
I don't remember that,
And
but
you don't. I'm gonna pull it out. I'm gonna have it marked as an exhibit. I'm gonna have my legal team present this to you. But yeah,
outrageous.
so mountain lions, they're around either in the woods or in your imagination.
Yet there's no evidence of them. Nobody's seen a mountain lion print in the snow in the winter when they love to hunt.
Well, I have fossil fragments with mountain lion paw prints in them that I'll be producing later tonight.
All right, that's fine. That works. That works out.
All right, so, moving along.
So, anything else? Do you have any tidbits to point out? Anything?
No. Later on tonight, I have the new segment, Stump Stosh. We'll see how you perform with 3 questions about tonight's topic. So we'll see if you're up on fossils.
God, I forgot to do the intro. Jesus, I'm off point. So we're talking about Gilboa fossils tonight with Kristen and Wycoff. So sorry about that from the Gilboa Historical Society. So yeah, roll that in. Good Lord. Definitely off. It's warm out here, man. I got you should see the fan that I have blowing the air on me. It's absolutely so small.
What I want to see is what's in that cup.
This cup, we'll talk about that later. So thank you to the monthly supporters, Chris, Darren, Vicky, John, Betsy, Denise, Vanessa, Joseph, Jim, Michael, and David. Appreciate you guys supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Once again, you guys are really making this go along. Sponsors of the show, check out Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Molly from Outdoor Chronicles Photography, specialized in adventure elopement and adventure couple photography in the Catskills, Adirondack, and the White Mountains. She's an officiant for getting married, a licensed guide, and she's also a story maker. Molly won't just give you photos, she'll give you memories that will last forever. Do not hesitate to get a hold of Molly on all platforms. Also, have you ever wanted to learn more about hiking or backpacking, or even just brush up on the old skills in the backcountry? Check out Trailbound Project, a hiking and backpacking school located in New Jersey. Scott and Joe from the New Jersey Search and Rescue Team have amazing backgrounds in wilderness first aid and wilderness first responder and the Mountain Recovery Association, and they're here to help you learn old and new skills of backpacking and hiking. Many other skills that could help you and others while out in the trail. Check them out on their website and social media platforms. So Trailbound Project just posted their schedule of different things that they're doing. A guided hike in Stone Living Room on May 4th. Backpacking Trip 1, an intro to backpacking on the 4th as well, May 4th. Women into the Wilderness, it's booked, but they're going to have an overflow of that, which is in the May 11th. A guided hike to Hemlock Falls, which is on May 11th. Essentials Gear hiking trip, which is on 5/18, which is May 15th. Again, hiking basics and safety, May 18th again as well. Compass and navigation, Wilderness First Aid, they have everything scheduled all the way up until August. And so check them out. Definitely. They have a lot of stuff going on. So speaking of like social media platforms and stuff, so we're going to try a new thing. So tag the podcast on one of your hikes and we'll chat about you on the show, or we'll have you come on the show in the podcast. You know, I know we've had a bunch of people tag us once in a while on the show. You know, Danny Mighty Mischievous has tagged us once in a while. Joe has tagged us once in a while. So tag us on your hikes and we'll chat about the hike that you did and, you know, our thoughts on the hike you did. Right, Ted? Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
Sounds fun because, you know, somebody might be doing something different every week and we'll chat about that and our experiences.
Yeah. We want to be in touch with our listeners.
Definitely.
We're here for you.
Indeed. So you drinking anything tonight, Ted?
I'm having my typical home roasted, home brewed cup of coffee tonight.
It's in a Yeti cup. Why would you have a Yeti cup at home?
Well, when you have 2 loving and caring daughters, they buy you things like this for Christmas, Father's Day, your birthday. So I would never buy a Yeti coffee mug for myself, but my daughters did. My one daughter did. She got it for me. They're both great.
She ain't going to listen to the show, is she? That's kind of disrespectful.
Well, no, I absolutely, they have to listen or they're getting cut out of the will.
Hey, that's
I run a tight ship around here, okay? I want respect from my kids. They're listening to the show or I'm disinheriting them. That's it.
I got to
I've
admit, thank you.
spoken.
Thank you. That gives us a little bit more outreach. So anything. So, so Tad, previous hikes, what have you done?
Oh God. How,
Yes.
where do you want me to start? So this hike that I did with Danny Davis on Saturday.
And who else?
And Zach in action on Instagram. He came along.
Nice.
So Danny had been talking about for quite a while this little blimp or dimple that he saw on some topographical imagery of Slide Mountain. So he's been wanting to go out there and check this out and see if it was just some artifact that didn't relate to anything on the ground or if it actually related to something on the ground. And also, Zach had pinged me a few times on Instagram about hiking Slide from the East Branch. So it all came together at the last minute. Interestingly, Zach, when I told him that we were going to be doing the hike this weekend, it was too late for Zach to jump on board. But sure enough, Saturday morning in the Denning area parking lot, Danny and I were getting ready to head out, and who pulls up but Zach? And he joined us. And like I said, we hiked out the East Branch. I could go on and on about the overall hike, and the tonight's show would be a few hours long. So the one thing I really want to emphasize is the early morning hike up the East Branch of the Neversink, going along that braided, meandering, so-called fisherman's path, is fabulous. A lot of people hike downstream the Neversink. They'll go bushwhack Lone Rocky or do Lone Rocky, Balsam Cap Friday, come down the Neversink. And it's a long hike. It becomes just monotonous. You start to just wanting to get back to your car, and you don't, at least I've seen, you don't enjoy that hike all that much. The best way to hike the East Branch, in my opinion, early morning, upstream. It's got that golden hour glow for what seems to be forever in the morning. You're enthused about the hike. You're heading upstream. I think it's just one of the best spots in the Catskills. So we hiked up the East Branch to the arched tree, which marks the point at which the herd path goes up and down to Rocky. And we just continued going up the East Branch and continued to the western fork of the East Branch. And we continued up that. We just went on and on and on and on and on. And eventually we came to the top of Slide Mountain. And then we bushwhacked down Slide. So I won't go into the details. I shared some of them with Stosh. It's a great hike. Encourage, though, everyone to hike up that East Branch in the early morning hours. Right. And then we'll learn later on tonight, I'll bring up who I met along the way. Yeah. A former guest on the show.
And how long, a former guest on the show, how long were you on that trail to meet that person? The absolute coincidence of that is absolutely insane.
Oh, well, we had hiked up the East Branch, as I said, and continued way up and beyond the point at which most folks turn off and head up or down to Rocky. And it'll bring me also to an interesting thing. We did find that dimple that showed up on the artifacts. And
interesting.
Yeah. And it was kind of like, it was about 50 yards across, more or less, maybe a depression of 20 to 25 feet. There wasn't enough evidence on the ground for Danny to figure out with some degree of geological precision why it was there. But what we all found interesting is way, way, way up in the never, never, never land of the reaches of the East Branch, we found a deer stand in a tree.
Nice.
A full-blown metal deer stand, like high up in a tree. Somebody had schlepped all the way up there to go hunting, which then is like, okay, you're up in your tree stand during hunting season. You shoot and kill a deer.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you up there with a bunch of people? Do you hoist it up a tree, gut it, dress it, hack out the meat? I mean, I don't know how much a typical deer weighs, but what is it you do? You I mean, how do you cut up a deer? Do you know, Stosh? I don't have a clue. I'm not
a big deer hunter.
So you dress it, and so what are you left with? Like 50, 60, 70 pounds of meat?
Mm-hmm.
So a couple guys, I guess, could haul that out, but that's a long way to go to a deer for a deer.
So you bring up a good point, is that a lot of the places that I've searched for previously in the Catskills have been old previous camps of deer hunters.
Really?
Like to be honest, you go up to Neversink and you keep going up to the headwaters. There's actual campsite on the western side of Friday Mountain. That is an old 1960s, 1970s campsite.
Been there.
Right?
It's the one with the wood stove there with the makeshift flue going up and then bending out over the overhang. Yeah, I've been there a few times. It's got some old pot and pans, some shovels. Yeah. Who was it? Jim Booten, I think, told me it was known as the Draft Dodgers camp.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
All right. I might need, I've seen some sort of that, so I'll need a exact GPS point for that. So my friend Joe has been looking for that. You know, Joe Ferry.
Oh, yeah.
He's Plain Hunter guy.
I think Joe knows where it is.
Joe doesn't, you know.
Really? No. Joe and I talked about it. He's sandbagging you. He's not as good of a friend of yours as you think he is, because I know that Joe knows about it, because before I found it, I had searched for it a few times. And so I asked Joe where it was where I was going wrong. And of course, Joe knows. I mean, he's one of those sources about Catskill intel that if he doesn't know about it, there's few other people that would.
So the time we went and looked at it, the first time, he probably found it the second time. The first time we looked for it, he went up and over. We went up over course of Friday, right in the call, and then went down. You know, those ledges are absolutely insane. I don't think there's any other ledges on the west side of Friday that you can encounter in the Catskills at all. It's just amazing. Ledges after ledges, massive rock after massive rock. And we searched and searched. This was a horrible, it wasn't raining, but it was raining like lightly. So, you know, stuff was falling on you. We had fog. So like I would look up at the ledge of Joe that was 20 feet up above me. I couldn't see him and I would yell. So the story is, let's break it. We had another friend that was meeting us from Slide in the middle of Friday Mountain to look as well. So just imagine that. Hey,
you're having a meetup in the middle of like the toothpick forest on the western slope of Friday.
Freaking no man's land.
Yeah.
Absolute no man's land. Nobody's been here. So I'm like, Joe, I look at him. I'm like, how the hell are we supposed to know he's going to be here? And how the hell are we supposed to know that he's going to be alive? You know, this is absolutely insane. And, so we meet that guy. We actually sit there and wait for like 20, 30 minutes. And I'm getting a little nervous. I'm like, this guy's not going to meet us. You know, now we have to go searching for him. We're screwed. And this is once again a crappy day. All of a sudden, you know, Joe whistles. Joe does like his freaking, you know, father whistle of his two pinky fingers in there. And the guy's just like, hey. And we're like, you gotta be kidding me. This happened. So crazy. Climb back over Friday Mountain. We get to the viewpoint that Joe has no clue of. I'm just like, you have no clue about this viewpoint on Friday that overlooks the Ashokan. He's like, I've never been here before. I'm like, and we're all looking at each other like, are you serious? This is like one of the iconic viewpoints that you can't miss.
That's the one south of the canister?
Yes, right above Ralph's ramp.
Yeah, gotcha.
And he saw it and he was blown away. And then it blossoms out to a picture perfect day at the end of the hike. But yes, that one area you're talking about going on the western part of Friday in between the call of Slide and Cornell is no man's land. Absolutely. I would say untouched basically. And then you find your own tree stand there and you're like, what the hell's going on?
You say it's untouched. Yeah. So we found the tree stand in a tree. There was no ladder. We didn't look around long for the ladder, but presumably who's ever in control of that tree stand has stashed their ladder. And then further up, as we're going towards slides, you run into some of these interesting clearings, where things just kind of level out. You're hiking uphill, you're navigating through these, boulder talus fields up and over some rock outcroppings. You come up over the top of it. Next thing you know, it's like clear. There's no trees around, right? So you hike through a little field, you go uphill more and more, and eventually, as we're approaching the summit, we started to run into an interesting collection of things made out of metal, some buckets, some steel shelving. Yeah, I mean, just a real whole bunch of oddities. We were speculating whether or not like John Burroughs might have some type of hangout up there, like a little writing studio or something. We're not exactly sure, but it was just a weird place we were very high up at that point. We were probably over 4,000 feet that we were running into this. And it's interesting how, and these were things that were big. The shelving or whatever contraption this was just so large. You have to wonder, was it possible for a single person to bring that up? But then you have this image of John Burroughs lugging anything he wanted up the mountain. So
enjoy it.
Yeah. So that's it. We had a fantastic hike on Saturday. We did bushwhack down what is known as Pirates Ridge. Have you ever heard that name before? Pirates Ridge?
I have.
Yeah, I didn't know it was named Pirates Ridge, but apparently that's what it's named. So we went down Pirates Ridge. Also, somewhat typical of any ridge in the Catskills, there were some areas of interest. We did find where somebody on top of one rock outcropping had stacked up a bunch of stones and put some wooden members on it as if it was like a picnic table area. And
really? Are you being serious?
Oh yeah, I have a picture of Zach sitting there. I can send you.
You did not send me that in the beginning.
Well, I can send it to you. I mean, I have photographic evidence of all these tall tales from the trail. But what was interesting is this was a fairly old assemblage of the rocks and the wooden members because there was a lot of rot to it. It wasn't something that somebody had done easily. It had to be 20, 25 years or more that somebody had done this. So.
Wow. And this was going on Pirates Ridge.
Yeah, we were coming down Pirates Ridge from the lookout that you had clued me into a while back.
What did Danny think of that, by the way?
Yeah, he thought it was cool, but we also found another special spot up there.
It's always you always got to one up me, man.
I am one upping you, and I'm going to do it again and again and again. So just get used to it. Get used to it. You can't mute me anymore when I one up you, okay? Because I have rights. I have rights now, and I'm going to enforce them. So at any rate, it's fun. It's fun to hike up and down Slide Mountain.
Yeah. So you talk about Pirates Ridge. I've also heard of that was also called once as Tumbling Ridge.
None of us took a tumble, and it was late in the hike, so we were somewhat tired, but not that tired.
That's what I've heard because it was once at a nice enough angle as where in the winter time you could tumble down and just keep going and going and going until you reach the Neversink. Yeah,
well, that toe of the slope where it goes into the Deer Shanty Brook area, right at the bottom of that ridge, is fairly steep.
Yeah,
but that's probably a vertical differential of less than 100 feet there, and yeah, I did. I don't know if I showed you. We did post it on Insta the photo of Zach coming down, the action photo of Zach coming down that ridge. So that's now known as Tumbling Zach in Action.
So is Zach in Action going to be on the show?
I don't know. Well, we can talk about that.
We can definitely talk about that.
We can reach out to Zach. Zach was supposed to be at a surprise birthday party on Saturday, and so he originally told me he wasn't going to make the hike. And like I said, Danny and I were getting ready to set out, and next thing we know, Zach comes strolling through the parking lot and joined us.
Nice.
And I think Zach had a good time.
I would hope so, because that's an absolutely fantastic hike.
Yeah.
Going up there. So you talk about surprise birthday party. So Saturday, I actually had the day off, and we were going to hold my mom a surprise 70th birthday party. And I had the option of occupying her until she got to the party. So what did I do? I didn't say we'd take her hiking. She's 70 years old. I do plan on spending money to get a nice sized wheelchair with big wheels and take her to some of these places that I've been to, the Catskill Mountain House, maybe a fire tower here or there, Red Hill, maybe, or something like that, to get her at least a glimpse of through my eyes of what I've seen. Cause she's driven through the Catskills, but she's never had the experience. I'm like, she's 70 years old. She needs to have this time of work and she can see stuff. So, I was like, hey mom, why don't we go bald eagle spotting? And she was ecstatic. She was like crazy. And she's like, do you mind if I invite your nephew, Shane, who is 12 years old? And I was like, hell yeah, if he's in for it, whatever. That would be fantastic. So they both joined us bald eagle spotting. I had one spot planned, which is the East Sydney Dam, which is if you listen to episode, I think it's 62 of the Bald Eagle restoration project. We talk about East Sydney Dam being one of the two spots in New York State that had a New York State, or I had a bald eagle's nest in New York State. Only two spots: Montezuma National Park, or Montezuma Park, and then East Sydney Dam. Now this, once again, I was unsure if there would be eagles there. So I was just like, let's go right down from my house. Not even a quarter of a mile down from my house is a bald eagle's nest. Massive, huge bald eagle's nest. It's sort of on private property, but you can see with binoculars from there. You can see from my good old 200 millimeter camera, you can see stuff. So we went down there, and grateful enough, there was a massive mother bald eagle sitting there with an eaglet in the nest, picking away at things, and the eaglet would pop up once in a while. My mom and my nephew would be so excited, be like, oh, there's the eaglet. There's the eagle. Oh my God.
Did you have a slingshot with you?
Not at all. I would have loved to throw salmon up there. Like, I would have thrown some salmon up there and have it calm down and get it right up to the eaglet. But I got to post the pictures on soon. I got to get those professional pictures up, because you can see the eaglet and the mother eagle turning kind of like to the side, and you can see their beaks. Absolutely phenomenal. So the second place we go to is near my cousin's house. Unfortunately, to get up to there, you got to have like a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and it's like rough and stuff. It's DEC. I don't know if it's DEC protected, but they say it is. And I told them, I really don't follow the DEC guidelines since they started.
Would you say you don't follow?
I do follow the DEC guidelines when it comes to trail maintenance, but with the bald eagles, they got their own podcast. They can do their own thing. But from so I wish I'm gonna send you a picture of where we stood to see how this bald eagle's nest, how big this bald eagle's nest. Oh, I don't have any for my cell phone. Damn it. So I got to say, half a mile away, you could still see the nest, how big it was. And plus you could see the little head, like the white head of the bald eagle. And my mom, to see it with binoculars was ecstatic. It was just like, oh my God, it's right above there. Look at how big. I guarantee that the size of this bald eagle's nest was about the size of a small house. It was just
wow,
absolutely amazing. And then we shift on to East Sydney Dam, and I did my research, and they didn't show any nest up there, but they did say that bald eagles are present up there. And we drive down, and I'm like, the water's low. Bald eagle's not going to be here. All of a sudden I see 3 birds flying over me, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to take a quick picture at that with my big lens. I zoom in, and it's a juvenile bald eagle.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh wow. And all of a sudden 2 more, the mother and the father fly over, and, they're kind of like cascading down into the thing and teaching it how to kind of fish in there. And we are just blown away. And one of them flies right over top of us. And it was just absolutely phenomenal time. My mom was ecstatic, totally blew her away that she could spot these bald eagles. And she had absolutely no clue that there was a surprise birthday party going on for her. And,
wow.
we go down 5 minutes away is the site of the 70th birthday. And we lead her in, and all of a sudden, we pull in, and then my cousin pulls in right next to us. Like, I'm like, are you freaking serious?
He gives it away.
Oh, like so close and so close. So I come up with a diversion, and I'm just like, hey, are you here for the craft show? He's like, oh yeah, we've been craft show hunting like all day long. We've been to at least 3 of them. And my mom is totally not knowing what's going on, and she totally goes for it. And we walk her into the pavilion that we're doing, and it's a surprise. She gets totally blown away, and she gets
and has a massive heart attack.
Not yet.
You got to be careful at age 70.
I know.
The type of surprise. I mean,
that's the thing I was scared of. I was scared of that totally.
Mm-hmm.
But she looks back at me and gives me that dirty look of just like, I can't believe you did this. And it was so good and so bittersweet, and a lot of people, from we had my aunt from North Carolina show up, a lot of friends from Long Island show up. Up north showed up, so we had about 70 people there, and it was very great.
So now we have to hear, you brought us this far into the story. We have to hear, what'd you get Mom for her 70th birthday?
A birthday card?
That's it. You got Mom well, that's what I tell my kids. I'd rather have a card than a present.
Yeah,
write me a note and a card, because I have a box full of these cards.
Nice.
I mentioned earlier, I have this coffee mug, and that's great and everything, but having these cards where they write things in them is very special. So that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And once again, my mom wants to go bald eagle spotting some more. So I'm looking to get into some more better binoculars. So if anybody has any suggestion for decent binoculars, but not going into the $2,000 range that I've freaking seen so far, let me know.
Well, the interesting thing with binoculars is they actually have them now with stabilization that stabilizes your field of view.
Oh,
so you can pick up a more powerful pair of binoculars or something with a higher level of magnification. And ordinarily, when you have that level of magnification, the more you move them around, the harder it is to focus in and see what you're looking at. But now with technology come as far as it has, just like in your camera with image stabilization, they've brought that to binoculars, as you would expect. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So
yeah, cool. Yeah. So great weekend for both of us. Once again, to Slide Mountain. Have you, Tad, really quick, have you bushwhacked up Slide Mountain, the John Burroughs route that I told you about that one time? Have you done that?
I don't know if I recall exactly which route it was, but I have bushwhacked up Slide several times.
Of course.
My understanding is he came up through Woodland Valley that first time.
Yeah, the Burroughs route.
Yeah, so I've been up through Woodland Valley a couple times. That's a fantastic hike. I remember the first time I did it was in the latter half of October, and I caught it on a day early in the morning where it was just glowing with the early morning sunrise, the leaves on the trees, and came up that ridge that brought me right in between Cornell and Slide. That was my first time going up.
Nice. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll have to do the Burroughs route, because
if we ever hook up and hike, we can put that on the list, but you're just too busy volunteering and stuff to hike with me.
Yes. And, speaking about volunteers, once again, Volunteer 3500 Club has now had their Trailhead Steward schedule is out now and open. You talk about Bear. Bear was a big volunteer before with the 3500 Club Trailhead Stewards. He's had a fantastic time. We talked about that. Julie McGuire was a Trailhead volunteer. I am a Trailhead volunteer. I can't wait to do it again, signing up this year. Tad, I know you won't do that. I think it's against your guidelines or something like that.
Maybe I'll do that. I'll you let me know what weekend to be there.
DEC let us. So we'll book it, and then all the DEC will be like, listen, that week's closed off. We got to do that.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll still crash it, and we'll do our volunteering, and we'll have them, they'll have to handcuff us, put us in shackles and haul us away. But we'll be so ferocious about being our trailhead volunteers that even a pack of wild mountain lions wouldn't be able to haul us away.
Wouldn't be stopping us.
Okay.
We still build some Adirondack chairs at the top of Slide Mountain. Don't stop us.
Yeah.
You can't stop us.
Yeah, we could do that at night. We could go up there at night, do that stealth mode, and distract the DEC, trying to capture and apprehend the Adirondack chair musketeers, if you will, in the Catskills.
I know.
And we'll volunteer during the day.
Slade and Martin are good friends of mine. They will. Well,
they're not going to be. They're not going to be when we're done with this. We're going to war with the DEC. We're taking them out.
All right. So Catskill Trail Crew, they also have a schedule out. They were doing stuff on Mary's Glen, very tough area of the Catskills. So appreciate you guys. Catskill Mountain Clubs, the Visitor Center, Jolly Rovers Trail Crew have recently announced their new schedule. So that is going to be pretty awesome stuff. So they have my friend, actually, he's search and rescue volunteer. Ben has signed up for their stuff. So I'm going to have to ask Ben if he signed up through like the podcast or not. So if he found out about the Jolly Rovers Trail Crew through the podcast or not. So Bradley Mountain Fire Tower. Also, if you need stickers, let me know, or go to Camp Catskill and you could get some free stickers there. These are absolutely free. So once again, contact me. Free stickers, put them on your car, put them on your Yetis, put them on your Nalgene bottles, whatever. It's not going to ruin anything. They're all a bunch of weird artifacts anyway. So weather forecast. Let's get on. Friday looks absolutely stunning. Up in the high mountains, we're talking about. I go from mountain to mountain every week, so this is from Plateau Mountain. On Friday, high winds of 5 miles per hour. Top temperature 50 degrees, going down to 46 degrees. Absolutely stunning. Some clouds here and there. Nothing. Absolutely beautiful day to hike Friday. Saturday is a little bit like kind of iffier. Starts off with some clouds in the morning and then going off to light rain in the afternoon, in the evening somewhat. A high of 46 and a low of 41. Not bad. Once again, you need that extra layering just in case you get up to the high peaks and there's a little bit more of a wind. Probably 10 to 20 mile per hour winds. Sunday looks like light rain in the morning and then getting out to some cloudy skies. Goes from anywhere from mid 40s down to the low 30s with the wind chill. So once again, we might be progressing into the warmer weather, but at the higher peaks, you still need those layers just in case. I always carry a raincoat and then maybe some sort of a long sleeve layer below that just in case. My pack, Ted, I don't know. What I tell you my pack was when I went hiking was when I did my trail maintenance was around like 33 pounds.
I believe so.
That's outrageous. Absolutely insane. All right, so no Catskill. I was going to do a Catskill Mountain history, but I'm not going to do it today.
We're going to get into history later with Kristen. We're going to dive back 380 million years. I think that's historic enough. I
would say definitely. Yeah. All right, so sponsors. So is it time for some new gear hiking the Catskills? Say no more. Camp Catskill in Tannersville has all your hiking needs: footwear, socks, moisture wicking shirts, freeze-shod meals, Catskill merchandise, and more. They have all the essentials for your hiking needs, located in Tannersville and online. Check out Camp Catskill. If you want free stickers, stop here in Tannersville. Also, if you're ready to hit the trails, make sure you take the scenic route. Scenic route guidings are here to help you with your goals, big or small, like Marcy or Slide alone or Stewart's. Check out Scenic Route Guiding and Gear Rentals on Instagram and Facebook for more information. Also, if you mention the podcast, you can get 10% off. Use the amazing code word Mountain Lion. Also, check out Another Summit, a nonprofit program that leads outdoor adventures and activities for veterans and first responders for free. Another Summit's Epic Adventure applications are open. This year's Epic Adventures includes a 9-day canoe trip in the North Main Woods and a through hike of the North Pole Placid Trail in the Adirondacks. Epic Ventures are a step-up program where you'll receive classroom instruction, wilderness first aid training, and a custom 3-day trip, all leading up to the adventure you'll never forget. Of course, this is all 100% free for veterans and first responders. Applications are open until May 1st for the Allagash River canoe trip and May 15th for the North Placid trip. So apply today at anothersummit.org. 15907. That's close. That's cutting it close.
Yeah.
Can the DEC do this long of a podcast?
No, they don't have it in the budget. Their guys come 5 p.m. when it's quitting time are going to punch out.
All right, so let's get on to the guest of the night.
Let's go.
Tonight we have Kristen Wycoff here from the Gilboa Historical Society talking about fossils in the Catskill. Now, this past couple of years, this has been a big uprising in findings in the Catskill area and Northeast and the world, really. A finding of one of the oldest forests in the Catskills has been found here in the area. So welcome to the show, Kristen.
Hi. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for inviting me.
Heck yeah, this is awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. In fact, I just spent a good part of the day in the Gilboa Museum. I'm painting another mural for the museum. And this particular mural is of the age of the fishes. It's all Devonian fish.
Oh, that's got to be awesome.
And so anybody that's ever been to the museum, they know that there's several paintings and murals of the Devonian period of the famous tree fossils that were found in Gilboa.
Excellent, excellent. So, big question right now is I just got to ask you both right now. What's the weather like right now there, Kristen? Because it's dark and rainy. I actually had to turn on one of my lights here. How about you?
Yes, it's just started raining here, but I haven't heard any thunder or lightning yet.
Got some thunder. Tad, anything near you?
The weather in the Hudson Valley is uneventful at the moment.
It's been super warm up here all day, and like 80, almost 80 degrees up here, and then all of a sudden it drops down to 62 degrees, and it's pretty dark right now for 4:30. You know, it's pretty cool that we're getting kind of like summer in here right now, and it's the end of April, so I like it. So, Kristen, sorry about that. I was very curious. I'm very curious about the weather, what's going on where everybody lives, because it's definitely different from up here in Oneonta where I'm at.
Oh, you're in Oneonta. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not that far away from you. I think the funny thing is I think we're both between me, you, and Ted, we're all scattered at the same amount of distance apart. Like it's like the same exact distance in between. So it's all different patterns, really. So Kristen, why don't you give a little background about yourself for the listeners, and we'll jump into everything.
All right. Well, we started the museum in 2005. And I am one of the co-founders. And when I heard, Gilboa, the town of Gilboa, it's a twin focus, because if you knew, the town of Gilboa was actually sacrificed for a New York City watershed. So the Historical Society originally got together to do this museum and really focused on the village, the pictures, the people. And I just knew a lot about the fossils. And at that time, I just said, can you just give me one wall and I can represent all the Gilboa tree fossils and other fossils that we have in the area on that wall. And they were nice enough to let me do that. And that's how it started. And people they come from all over the world, because a lot of geologists when they study geology or paleontology, the word Gilboa comes up, because that's where these famous trees fossils were found in the late 1800s, early 1900s. In fact, they became world famous when they did the Gilboa Dam, and they found over 40 tree stumps, and they were pretty much sent all over the world. Every famous institution and museum has one. And so then I got in deep with the Historical Society, and I actually was president for a while. Now I am vice president of the Gilboa Historical Society, and I'm also chair of the educational committee. I do most of your field trips and tours for the museum, especially that's related to the fossils.
Now, the funny thing is, I'm guessing a lot of the people that listen to the show don't know really where Gilboa is, because most of them don't travel up past, I would say, Wyndham and stuff. So can you tell us where Gilboa is? I know where it is. Sure. I love Gilboa.
Gilboa is on the northern edge of the northern Catskills. We're about a half hour from Hunter, Wyndham, Roxbury, Plattekill, and that's how most people know the Catskills is the ski resorts. So that's why I mention it. And we were a pretty big town, believe it or not, in the late 1800s. In fact, we were the largest town in Schoharie County in 1850. Gilboa was. And the reason no one has really heard of it much is because it was completely sacrificed. It's a reservoir. The only thing left is a school, a post office, and now we have the Gilboa Museum and the newly opened Rockland Cidery, which is right down the road. They just opened 2 years ago, and that's a great improvement. We have live music and cider and in our little town.
And I've seen those like those little pop-up signs everywhere, and I've always wanted to go down there, but every time I've gone down there in the past couple of years, they've been closed. So it's been weird.
Oh, really? Well, the cidery is usually open every weekend, and they usually have bands every Saturday, and food trucks. But the museum is only open from Memorial Weekend, Saturday and Sunday, till Columbus Day weekend, Saturday and Sunday. In the winter, we do usually close up. And it's a lot of volunteers, and it's hard to get people in the winter. It's just not worth it. I do private tours, though, and several members of my group are on call for people that are breezing through and want to meet and see them. There are fossils that are outside the museum, but the majority of the really good ones are inside the museum. And when I started this in 2005, there really wasn't a lot of new theories or anything new that had really been discovered with these fossils for almost 100 years. And so I painted this mural, and it's based mainly on the paleontology of that early 1900s by the state paleontologist Winifred Goldring. And it's beautiful, and a lot of things. There's huge Acadia Mountains, and the wearing down of these mountains is what really created your Catskill Mountains of today, one sedimentary layer at a time. That's why we're so known for fossils in New York State. And then, once you know it, just a year or two later, a crew from the New York State Museum and Dr. Stein from the Binghamton University discovered the entire tree all together with the crown attached. And they found out that this tree didn't look anything like they thought it did. They thought it was a fern tree. Well, it turned out it's more like a bottle brush palm. And they were able to excavate this and do a complete research study on it at the New York State Museum, and involved another paleontologist. There's pretty much just 3 or 4 in the whole world that study these tree fossils. And the guy out in Wales, near England, was also involved, Dr. Chris Berry. And then we had 2010 come along, and New York City started renovating the dam. And these paleontologists were allowed to go back to the original riverbank quarry and see if they could find any more fossils. And New York City was great in allowing them to go there, and held things up for probably 3 or 4 weeks on their end. But it was really nice of them to do that. But they did find another like 35 stumps, Gilboa stumps, and then they also discovered two new tree species. And one is nicknamed the snake tree. It grew along the ground and then produced these crowns up in the trees of the Gilboa trees, which is officially called Eospermatopterus. And the snake tree is officially called Tetraxylopterus. And these were huge findings in 2010 and 2011. And another thesis was written and put in the Nature magazine. And worldwide fame came about this whole research then. And then, I'm sure you've all heard about it lately, a new forest has been discovered in Cairo, New York. And I've been one of the lucky ones. I have been there to see it. And it is pretty much a quarry, a flat quarry, with like 10 to 12 tree roots spreading across this whole quarry. And the most remarkable thing about this is, excuse me, that Archaeopteris, a tree that was much more modern, was discovered living with the Gilboa tree. And that's what was the real exciting part of finding this Cairo. It's not only the oldest forest, too. These roots are about 2 or 3 million years older than the Gilboa trees, which were always thought to be the oldest in the world. So when they realized that these roots were all living together at the same time, this is another huge theory and evidence that really we always don't know exactly what we thought things were. And so now we know that Archaeopteris, a more modern tree, lived with the Gilboa tree, which is a very primitive tree. And other trees too, they found that they had never discovered that old before.
you are very knowledgeable in this area. What about your background? Are you have any background in this?
Well, my background is that my dad was an earth science teacher and my mother was an artist.
Impressive.
And I actually went into horticulture, which did help me with the botany end of this whole tree and plant research with fossils. It actually did give me a background. But it was just my love of fossil hunting as a kid and doing wonderful things with my parents. I'm a mixed bag of painting Devonian paintings, which is my favorite thing to do right now.
I mean, that's impressive that you're naming off all these tree species and stuff like that, and without any stuttering at all. Like, I can't even remember what you just said because of the craziness.
Well, I was really lucky enough to work directly with the paleobotanists. I mean, they kept a lot of things to themselves when they were writing their theses and everything. But then occasionally they would actually ask me to do one of the first drawings of the forest, how they envisioned it. In fact, this New York State or the New York City renovation, when they went in there, they not only found these new tree species, that nicknamed the snake tree. You can remember that, right? And this thing's like a 6-inch trunk that grew on the ground with these really weird looking roots that dug into the bedrock. Really cool. And but they didn't realize so many things they found in that quarry that were answers to questions even about Eospermatopterus, the original Gilboa tree. They actually found the stumps with these huge root mounds all the way around the stumps. And until that time, we thought these fossilized tree stumps that we were finding were the whole stump, but they realized they were just the inner core. And these trees had these huge root skirts that went all the way around the tree and gave it support, because they didn't have much support. And they were knocked down many times with flooding. And in fact, something very climatic definitely happened in our area, upstate New York, to have so many complete trees and complete stumps, and to have them pretty much the oldest in the world.
You referred to upstate New York, and let's just put this in more of the chronology or the time period and the geographical location. At the point in time that this forest was actually alive and growing, geographically, where was it located relative to the equator?
Okay, good question. Yes, this was below the equator. And we were together with England at that time. North America was attached to England, Europe. And so try to imagine where New England is and the start of the Atlantic Ocean. There was these huge mountain train, as big as the Himalayas of today. And these were the Acadia Mountains. And they played a big part because, like I said, they had storms, and the runoff was of fresh water, but it was flowing into the Devonian Sea, which was salt water. So you had brackish water, and this is going back 380 million years ago, to answer your question. These were the first forests on Earth, and they really represent so much because it's the first time that carbon dioxide is changing along with oxygen. And this is our first climatic change, really. Was one of the first ones in our world.
So we can talk about that. When you talk about carbon dioxide, isn't it true that in large part one of the significance of this forest 380 million years ago is it was a large factor in converting the carbon dioxide into oxygen and put carbon in the ground, released oxygen into the atmosphere, which allowed what to occur?
It allowed living creatures.
Like Stosh, when you say a living creature, you're referring to a fellow like Stosh.
Yes,
right?
We're creatures, yes.
So
and we're animals. And these creatures were mostly in the water. Mm-hmm. But guess what? This time period, because of these plants living and growing on the land for the first time ever, guess what? Insects and mites, arthropods, they're called, were developed and started to live on the earth also. And so that also is when your lungfish they were amphibians, were just starting to develop. Their fins were starting to turn into feet and arms, and they started crawling out of the water. And there's
hanging
a lot
out with the snake tree.
Right. They wanted to hang out with the plants. They're not really sure if the plants were edible, but they may have been looking for, just other places to go swim. Maybe it was drying up in a certain area and they had to go look for more water. Or maybe they decided they liked the taste of these arthropods, these mites and insects that have been discovered recently too. That at first they didn't think there were any life on land at all, up until probably the 1970s when they discovered this in Gilboa.
Which is crazy because it's right basically in our backyard. This significant thing. And I think one of the things that really emphasizes the importance of the Gilboa fossil forest is what you said early on, that you can find these fossils in any major museum in the world. Is that true?
That is true. And I know for a fact, people come up to me and say, we saw one at the Chicago Institute. We saw one at Boston University. We saw one at the Smithsonian. And the Natural Museum of History often changes out their display. I get a little irritated. People think they're going to find this famous New York State fossil at the Natural Museum of History, and sometimes it's just not on display.
I read recently that in the London Museum, there's one of these Gilboa fossils when you walk in.
Yeah. And I mentioned earlier, Winifred Goldring, the state paleontologist right there at the turn of the century, she made these fossils world famous. And she literally sent them overseas too. Yeah. And she's the one that really made Gilboa on the map.
Which back then was quite a feat because they were very heavy, and transporting them must have been quite a chore back then.
Oh, yes. That's always a chore, even today.
Yeah, right.
Nobody wants to help Kristen carry a fossil out of the Schoharie Creek. Believe me, that's the biggest chore to find one.
Before I turn it back to Stosh, when you mentioned that at the point in time that this forest was alive and growing, it was south of the equator. Did it also have the same climate that we would now associate with that area?
No, good question. It was that's why my paintings all look like a tropical rainforest, because this was a very hot, steamy, tropical environment. And that's why these trees were able to grow and make it, really, because it was such a harsh land at that time for trees to be able to seed themselves and live there. They didn't have seeds. Sorry, I take that word back. They reproduce by spores only. You're talking moss, ferns. They are your descendants of these tree fossils today. We have moss and ferns. Wow.
So, Kristen, when you're talking about the size of this snake tree and the size of these trees that they found recently in Caro and Gilboa, now they're not like the size of the trees that we see today in our natural forest, are they?
No. These trees, Eospermatopterus, the Gilboa tree, ranged anywhere from 25 to 35 feet usually. And that's the way most of them were. The snake tree, they think it had like a symbiotic relationship with the Gilboa tree because it was always curved around and then would shoot their crowns up into the branches of the Gilboa tree. And so they feel like they were always leaning on each other and helping each other. But the Archaeopteryx tree that was found in Caro, now that's a big tree. That is a tall, big tree, probably look like your big white pines of today.
Wow. Just massive trees rainforests always had nutrients, always had supplies constantly going into it. So they were constantly growing. And now, so we're talking about I'm guessing the shift, of course, going from the equator all the way up to here was during those times of just the movement of the earth and when we separated from Europe and such like that. And now we're up here and going at that time of how did we discover these? Like did they just pop up? How did we discover the Cairo area? Then how did we discover the, oh, wow. Did you see that? That was some massive lightning. Did you see that in my background?
No. I'll start with Gilboa.
Sorry.
Gilboa, there were people that found in the village of Gilboa because there was a flood. And there was a couple people that did actually find stumps and knew what they were. And they brought them to other scientists of that time. They're talking late 1800s. But then when the dam was done, that was when Winifred Goldring was called in from the New York State Museum. And that's when they really researched these stumps, and they couldn't believe them. And they found actually 3 separate forests in Gilboa. They know that these forests were completely buried, died, and millions of years later, rebuilt 3 different times. They have found 3 different elevations of forest. And it's pretty remarkable. Now in Caro, they're still learning. That's a new quarry. They're still trying to figure out and how that started. Oh my gosh, it's the woman from the New York State Museum, who I'm very good friends with, who's a paleobotanist, Linda Hernick. She was at that quarry in Caro looking for liverworts, extinct liverworts, fossilized liverworts. These little plants. I don't even know really what they are that much, but she was very excited about doing her thesis on these liverworts, and they kept going back to this quarry because they kept finding them. Well, she brought Chuck Verstraeten with her, who is the New York State geologist right now, and he all of a sudden realized that there was these channels going out from a center point. They were going out in all these different directions, and he started clearing. They were all filled with silt and dirt, and he started cleaning out these channels and realized, oh my gosh, this is a tree root system. And then they just started expanding this quarry, and they found all these different trees, and they could tell which ones they were from the roots.
Wow.
And how is it they're able to date the age of these fossils?
Well, that's a very complicated process, but it's called carbon dating. And I can't even tell you. I have asked several times, and there's like no easy way. It's with uranium.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the research lab, but it's very accurate.
But going back
right down to that million year,
mm-hmm.
right? 2 or 3 million years.
But going back to when the Gilboa fossils were first discovered, didn't they in part know at least approximately how old they were given the layer of rock that they were found in?
Yes and no. Yes, they have, the scientists do know all the different layers, the Hamilton, the Marcellus, there's all these different shale layers. This was in sandstone, and they're all called something, yes. And they could pinpoint approximately what date they were looking at until they did the carbon dating.
So we're like, you're talking about the Gilboa site and the Gilboa Dam. That's right around the Schoharie Reservoir, of course, right? I mean, the dam was built. That's at God, I'm trying to think of the elevation that's around like 1,500 feet.
Yeah, I would say about 1,500.
Okay.
Because they found a lot of the fossils down around 1,100, 1,200 feet.
And this was the recreation of the dam again. So the first time they didn't find anything, but the second time we were probably looking a little.
No, the first time they did.
Oh, they did?
The first time they did the dam, that's when they made them world famous back in the 1910, 1920 was when they were really brought out to the world.
Oh, wow.
By this woman paleontologist. And then they went back in 2010, and they found more stumps, and they also found these other 2 tree species.
See these.
But what's really interesting, where they found the whole tree with the crown attached, it's up on top of this mountain at 2,200 feet.
Wow.
Pretty crazy.
Is that why I can never get down to the Gilboa Dam site? Is there always just like, hey, you're gonna do something? Because I always want to go down and explore near there, but they're not letting me.
Well, you can if you have your fishing permit.
Okay.
If you have a local fishing permit and you have a dam permit, a city permit, you can.
All right.
But don't think you're going to, fossil hunt and take it away with you.
Before we move along, what's the name of the mountain where the tree was found at?
It's called Mountain.
Mountain
In Conesville.
Is that a private?
I'm bleeping that out.
Or is that?
Well, yeah, okay. We really don't like a lot of people to know where it is.
Okay,
but
you don't have to give us that intel.
I'm going to bleep it out. Trust me, Kristen. You're going to be like, bleep mountain.
But it is on state land.
Ooh. Oh, excellent.
Just for your information. Yeah.
So I'm getting my backhoe on the trailer and heading out this weekend.
Danny's going to love that, Tad. Danny's going to love that.
He's going to join in.
Yeah. So with this site, besides just just tree stumps and stuff like that, are there any animal, insects, amphibians also found fossils?
They're very rare. They have found, armor. I have some pieces of armor on a rock, which is pretty cool. The New York State Museum has many fish. I have never really found right here, and they haven't either, just evidence of it. They found teeth, imprints, but of fish. And then they did find some arthropods up at that South Mountain site, which were like half to a quarter inch to a half inch long, little like pill bug things. And that's about the extent of it as far as animals, really. It's mostly plant fossils. And some people find that boring when they look at plant fossils, but they're very rare. Plant fossils are so much more rare than like when you find a seashell, like a brachiopod or a trilobite. Think about that. To become fossilized, that shell was hard and was able to make it through that whole process. But what about a plant? When you have like a fern frond, I mean, that's why something really climatic happened here in Gilboa, and the mud and just getting buried completely and having probably no oxygen whatsoever helped create these plant fossils.
Interesting.
I have a huge collection, and most of it's in the museum. But I find a lot of just pieces of roots. I find pieces of branches. I find pieces of stumps. I find foliage sometimes, just that looks like ferns, but it's more twiggy.
Yeah.
And these are really exciting finds. And I do take groups out.
And when you say you find these, Kristen, where is it you're finding them? On the museum property?
No,
or is
it's on, okay. Right near the museum is a Gilboa Bridge. And if you look to the right, you'll see the spillway of the dam, and that's all New York City property. Nobody's allowed there.
Nobody's allowed there.
Even if you have your fishing permit, that from the bridge to the spillway is off limits completely. Now, the other direction goes north on the Schoharie Creek, and it's forever wild. And people can go fossil hunting on there. There's a little pull off, and you can walk all the way to the cidery.
Wow. So what is it, if anything, we know or hypothesize about the cellular structure of the Gilboa trees? Are they more like the tree, the lumber of a tree that we associate with modern trees of today, or do we believe that they had a different texture, composition, integrity than what we have in our typical trees of today?
Yeah, they're not typical of today.
No?
No.
How so?
In fact, these Eospermatopterus, the Gilboa tree, they think they were hollow inside. They're pretty sure that they had a xylem and phloem system, like trees of today, transporting system. But they really aren't a woody plant. A true tree is a woody plant.
Okay.
And the snake tree is actually a woody plant, is a true tree. But Eospermatopterus, they have just recently theorized that they don't feel that is a woody plant. So there's all these little categories that you learn in botany about plants and trees. And these are different. They're very different.
And what is it from the fossils themselves or other factors that leads them to this conclusion that the Gilboa fossil trees were not woody plants?
Good question. That one I don't know for sure.
Okay. That's fine.
You're talking, I deal with these doctorates in paleontology, and they have their theses are pages and pages long.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
I can't even sit and read their theses, but what I did do was encourage them to write a book that is people friendly. That anybody could sit down and look at. They don't even have to read it. They can just look at the pictures, and it's beautiful, because they didn't have something like that. And I wanted people to be able to understand this story, people like me, the everyday person. And so this
my kind of level.
Catskill Forest fossil book. It's written by these paleobotanists that discovered, and they tell how they discovered the crown and how they excavated it out of the mountain, and beautiful pictures of everything they did. And we sell it in our gift shop. And you go to my site, gilboafossils.org, and you go to the gift shop, and we have this book available for you. And it's one of those, like, it's just a really great, any person would be interested in reading it, even from front to back.
Crazy. Now, like I'm on that kind of level where I like to see pictures, and just, I'm still a little kid. I'm sorry. Tad is smiling over there. He's just like, wow, this is so sad. But, I like to see old pictures and stuff describing what it is. And then maybe like 2 pages of detailed information. And then I'll maybe get it in a sentence or two. And then I'll just be like, no, this is too much for me. I'm on to the next one. So like, Gilboa, the funny thing is a lot of people don't know Gilboa is a very small town. Once again, that used to be a town that was located further up north that got moved down south because of the reservoir system. And look at what the reservoir system has done for us now is gave us the Gilboa site of where it's spotted the oldest forest in the world and stuff like that. Like Gilboa has like probably a population of not even 1,000, right?
Yeah, around there.
Around there. Okay, good.
1,200 with, with seasonal summer people.
Exactly. So,
but you're right. This has, that's the positive thing out of Sacrifice Our Town is they found these Gilboa fossils.
Exactly.
And also we have a very pristine environment here. There is no industry. There's hardly any even dairy farms left. I bet there's only 2 in our whole town, if there even is that left. And so very, people come here if they are sick, have cancer, they want to get away from the city. You want clean air, you want clean water. This is the perfect place to come.
So the Gilboa site, is it the oldest or is that the Cairo site?
Well, right now the Cairo site is several million years older as a forest. Okay. But really the Conesville tree is a complete tree. Okay. And that really should be called the oldest tree in the world. Okay. But I don't hear that publicized too much, but I'm, it is a whole tree. So the oldest forest is just roots.
Okay.
And in Gilboa, we do have so much more. We have stumps, we have branches, crown sections. So it's all good. We're all among the oldest. And you never know what's coming up next. That's what's so exciting. I've been in this almost 20 years, and I have in this museum, and I have had nothing but new discoveries. It's been so exciting.
So that's a one big question that I have. How is this discovered? Are you like using machines to excavate something, and all of a sudden something pops up? Or is this careful stuff like you're doing with like dinosaur bones and stuff like that, where they, like in Jurassic Park, they're brushing away everything? And
oh yeah, they take very good care. I mean, they did with the South Mountain Quarry. I believe they did have an excavator go in ahead of time, and fortunately, then they discovered this and they stopped any kind of excavation on that tree. And then at the Gilboa Dam site, that's a hard rock quarry. Just try to imagine sandstone. And there was no, roughing that up, really. It was just, they scraped it down because it had been covered for probably almost 100 years from the original dam installation. So, and it's covered back up now after they got done finding all these stumps and the snake tree and making imprints and doing studies and cutting some things out. They cut some stuff right out of the bedrock to take back with them. And all they found on these is pretty much at the New York State Museum. But I go down on the creek and you find all kinds of things because everything washes. In this case, Schoharie Creek goes north. So everything.
I love that factor, by the way. I love that the scary
stream. Okay. And what's great is, after like Hurricane Irene, oh my gosh, it was like Mother Nature had like cleared this gigantic path for Kristen Wycoff just to go fossil hunting. That's the way I felt, where everybody else was suffering with no homes and they were flooded. And my house happened to be up on a hill, even though I had no roads to get out then. I was able, later I went out fossil hunting and I found some of the best fossils because a flood will turn rocks over completely. I have had rocks. I went down to the creek one time and I found a whole root system. And then we had a flood. I never saw it again. And these are big, gigantic boulders. And so water has power. And so I found some really incredible fossils after Hurricane Irene and forever grateful. And I have them at the Gilboa Museum.
Now, for the listeners, just to let you know that the Schoharie Creek starts all the way at the beginning of the Indian Head Mountain range down near Devil's Path, and it goes all the way up. That's the thing that I love, that it goes up New York State to the Mohawk River. No, it flows north, which everybody's like, oh, everything, the Susquehanna, the massive Susquehanna flows south down the Chesapeake Bay. Hudson flows down into the Atlantic Ocean and stuff like that. but we have the Schoharie Creek, which goes north. And I love that thing. My wife is just always asking, she's just like, why is that spillway in Prattsville flowing the other way opposite than the creeks? I'm like, because it flows north. I don't know freaking why. Don't ask me. I'm not a person, but
it is. It's very unusual. And it's pretty amazing. And for people that don't know where Indian Head is or whatever that I call it, it's kind of near Elka Park, Tannersville, the headwaters. And I have been there. And it's like a little swamp.
Yep.
But you can find fossils all along. Every county up here, I would say Greene County, Delaware County, Otsego County, Columbia County, all these, Saugerties is a really big fossil place. I've seen starfish from Saugerties, beautiful, at the New York State Museum. And so there's a lot of rock hounds out there, let me tell you. They know where their quarries are to go. But stream beds are really good because they're always turning rocks over. And for some reason, I find I've even found a stump in small creeks around here. In fact, I heard there was a story of a whole truckload of these fossilized tree stumps from Gilboa on their way to the New York State Museum back in 1910, and it broke a bridge.
Ooh,
the whole truck, everything went down.
That's sad. We lost all that history.
So I think they missed one. I got it. I found that one, I think, but I don't know for sure which bridge it was.
So we've covered that at one time the Gilboa fossil forest was believed to represent the oldest forest known to mankind, and then subsequent discoveries have found that there were even a few older fossil forests. That the Gilboa fossil forest is so significant, though, that these fossils are literally around the world at all the major museums. And what I understand, and obviously you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, but it's believed, and I think you mentioned this, that there was a single event or a very short period of time during which the forest, as a living forest, was destroyed or decimated and buried in sand or some other material. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And can you tell us more about that?
Well, these big, huge mountains I was telling you about, the Acadia Mountains, they're huge. They're like the Himalayas, like I was saying, or the Andes. And they always have storms constantly. They're always having runoff. And they not only created the Catskill Mountains of today, one sedimentary rock at a time, but they also would flood silt, sand, and just totally bury these stumps. And what would happen is the stump, and mostly Gilboa is really known for the stump. I mean, these things are big too. You're talking, 3 or 4 feet high by 2 or 3 feet wide. They're heavy. But this is what when we say the Gilboa stumps, that's what I'm referring to. And what happened was they would get filled up and it would create like a cast. That's what the fossil tree is, really a cast in a mold of the tree stump itself. And then the trunk would break off and float away. And that's why you don't find that many crowns. You don't find that much foliage attached. And it took that many years, almost 100 years, from the first real major discovery to find out that this tree was really not a fern tree. It was a bottlebrush palm. Mm-hmm. And so, but yeah, it's very, when you cut off oxygen like that and fill it in, that's how you create a fossil. And I'm sure it took millions and millions of years too. I mean, these go back 380 million years that they lived. And then the next period of time after the Devonian period is Carboniferous. And that's when you had the coal swamps. I think a lot of people are very familiar of the Pennsylvania, the huge trees, fern trees, big giant moss trees. I think a lot of people could visualize that in their mind. Mm-hmm. These weren't quite that tall, but they were all buried and created coal.
But not in Gilboa. No coal. But
not in Gilboa.
Gotcha.
No coal in Gilboa. Thank God.
So, Stosh, if I can we move on to the museum? I have some questions about the museum.
Absolutely. Move on to that awesome museum.
All right. So, Kristen, this is your opportunity to give some plugs about the Gilboa Museum. First of all, what's the official name?
Okay. It's the Gilboa Museum and Nicholas J. Juriad History Center.
And who was Nicholas, or who is Nicholas?
actually went to Gilboa School, a 1947 graduate.
Nice.
He's 94 years old. He lives in
Wow.
Texas now, but he came home for an alumni banquet one time, and he happened to catch me at the museum, and he was just amazed. And it was just a one-room schoolhouse then. Everything we had jammed into one room, all the fossils and all the, Gilboa artifacts. And so the next year he came up and says, I want to build you a history center.
Wow.
And this was in 2016. We built a history center. And the next year he built a pavilion in honor of his wife, Dorothy Cox Juriad. And he's been our biggest, and then he's helped everybody in Schoharie County. He's our, everybody's gotten grants from him, from the Juriad Foundation, the Iroquois Museum, the Stone Fort in Schoharie. And he's just been wonderful. So we have a twin focus. And I have had people as soon as we opened, people came to Gilboa all over, just a lot of them just to see the fossils. This one example was this guy, it was his 50th birthday, and he's from England. He says, I treated myself to come see the Gilboa fossils. And he said, when I got to New York, I had no idea that you were 3.5 hours above New York City. So, but he got a taxi and he came all the way up, and I just happened to be on that day. Thank goodness, because I gave him a really good fossil tour, and he was just so forever grateful.
Sounds like something a movie would be made of. A guy comes to New York from London to see a Gilboa fossil, and he has to run a taxi to come upstate, and the taxi driver is hanging out.
He rented a car. I think he rented a car or something. But I've had some really great stories of people, and you meet so many wonderful people. That I have the local people that have never even been there, and there's kids in school. There's kids in school that don't even know that this is what their town is famous for. So that's my job. I make sure that every 4th or 5th grade come to the museum as a field trip. And I really give them a great tour. I let them touch all my fossils, and I let them play with dress-up clothes, vintage clothes. And we used to have dig for fossils. Right now we're out of them. But we have paleo stuffed animals in the gift shop, which is a big hit. And then I let the kids play outside, like do croquet and old-fashioned games, that they used to play in the village of Gilboa. And then they get to eat lunch under our pavilion.
Yeah. So now with the paleo gift set, I know what to get Stosh for his birthday.
Please.
So if you would, Kristen, what is it we would expect to see when we go visit the museum when it's open?
Well, you get to come in first to the natural history part, and you get a short 8-minute video of a documentary that we did quite a while ago, before all these new findings even, but it gives you a really good basis of how the Gilboa fossils were found. It tells about Winifred Goldring, and it shows pictures of the village. It's only 8 minutes long, but it's really worth it. And then if I'm there, I usually share with everybody all my fossils, the paintings I did, and why I had to remake the whole painting after they found new fossil tree species. And that's why I'm doing a new mural right now, because we didn't have any fish. I only had like a lungfish that crawled out in my painting. So now I'm doing a mural of Devonian sea life right now, and it's beautiful, very colorful. And then you get to go to the History Center, which is just loaded with a lot of photographs of old Gilboa, which is a treasure. And it was quite a town. It had its own hydroelectric power plant on the Schoharie Creek with the falls. It had its own phone systems. It had, a lot of motels, hotels, and it was quite a significant town. And the people stayed there, which was, we pictures the dam going right through the center of the village, and people still stayed there till they had to leave finally. They did burn the town before it filled up with the reservoir. But this year we're doing something a little bit different. I'd like to throw out there. It's called the Gilboa Naturalist. And I'm going to be giving hikes, field trips on Saturdays, mostly in August. My first one is going to be a Eagle Nest drive-by. That's June 8th.
My stuff. Yes.
And then, because we have 4 Eagle's Nests in Gilboa area. And so then, starting August 3rd, I'm doing the Fossil Tree Forest Descendants Hike. That's a mouthful. And I'm Dr. Michael Kudish.
There we go.
From Delhi County. And he's going to be my identifier for the moss, club moss. And he's remarkable. I just saw his talk on bogs last week, and he's amazing. and we're going to collaborate. And I'm going to parallel how these trees look like these little tiny club moss that you see in the woods. Some of the trees are identical almost, only they're just, 15 to 20 feet high. And then we're doing Native American clay bowls in the Schoharie Creek. I have a clay bank that we're going to go dig out, and people are going to make them just like the American Indians did.
Wow.
And this is a Saturday morning from 10 to 12, these hikes are. And they're every other Saturday in August, starting August 3rd. Then the last one is the fossil hike. And that's right from the museum. We will go up the Schoharie Creek. And I will be there on call for identification. And then in September, we are joining Charles Verstraeten, the state geologist, at the Carroll Quarry. It's going to be a field trip from Gilboa, but we can meet people there. I think that's September 21st. And then I got Bob Titus, who I see he's everywhere right now with his new book. But I have him in October. I can't remember the date, but it's the weekend after Columbus Day weekend that I have him at our museum to talk about, I can't wait to hear about the comparison of the Hudson River schools with the paintings they did and the geology.
So with all of these events coming up, do you have a calendar of events on the website?
We do. You go to gilboafossils.org, and I'm the contact person there. And if you email me or contact me, I will send it to you, or you'll see where it says events. You click on it, and it goes to our Gilboa Museum website, which has all the events on it.
Okay. Right. And do we have to pre-register for some of these?
Yeah, well, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say some of these people that you have, Kristen, have been on the show, and they are very popular. Michael Kudish, Charles Van Straten, Dr. Titus, they've all been on the show, and they're
good. Well, there is a charge for this because this is a fundraiser for our museum to keep it so we can maintain it. So it'll be $10 a person or $20 for a family.
Does that include a cider from the cider mill down the road?
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
Nice.
But I do want people to come at least 15 minutes early because I do have registration and a hold harmless agreement.
A hold harmless agreement. Wow,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
crazy.
they're making me do that. Insurance.
Everybody lawyers up, I suppose. So before I turn it back to Stosh, let's say I'm out in the area one weekend this summer, and I want to swing by the museum. How crowded does it get on a typical weekend?
Oh, it usually doesn't get that. It's open from 12 to 4. It's a real rarity if you have that many people that you can't really view the walls and everything. It's usually, in fact, it's very slow. We're in the middle of nowhere, so they trickle in.
How much time should I plan to spend there when I swing by?
Oh, I would, depending on how interested you are in fossils, but I would give it a good half hour, 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And I would line me up. If you want the Gilboa fossil tour, where I personally show you all the fossils I found and how I found them and what they mean to me and why I painted them in the painting, contact me on that gilboafossils.org. I'm the cell number and I'm the email address.
And just to let you know, Ted and Kristen, to piggyback on your stuff, that there's a lot around Gilboa that people don't know about. I mean, there's Minekill Falls, there's Inlet Falls. There's the whole reservoir. There's the upper reservoir. You can walk around that shows you an amazing view of the northern Catskills. Like there's so much in Gilboa.
Oh, it is. It's gorgeous. That's like a 4-mile hike. Perfect. It's flat.
It's flat.
And you can bike it. New York City Reservoir, no one's allowed on that one. The Blenheim Gilboa Pump Storage, Minekill State Park is really a beautiful park.
Beautiful.
And it includes the Long Path. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. The Long Path is a trail that comes up from George Washington Bridge and goes all the way up through New York State. And it goes through Schoharie County. And it's one of the most beautiful trails going just past our museum and cidery. And it hooks up to Minekill and ends up at Minekill Falls Overlook, or at the falls.
Yeah.
And it's got beautiful just cliffs. You're up above the creek, and then you got bridges you go through, and yeah, it's a really nice. And big trees. Next year I'm going to do one on big trees probably.
Yeah. Because
the Minekill has so many big magnificent oaks, and they even have a geological slide, which I'm going to highlight next year.
Wow.
Is that the one to the north going towards Blenheim?
You go into the park, Minekill,
Okay.
And instead of even going, you don't even go past the where they used to pay. You don't have to pay anymore, but you don't even go to the pool. You don't even pass the pool. Right there's a little parking lot, and it'll say trail to Minekill Falls from that end. So it's past the Minekill Falls overlook. And you take that trail and you will see not only this gigantic oak I was talking about, but you will come across a slide. It's a geological slide.
Oh, nice. There's something to take Danny to, Tad.
He's
got to go north.
Yeah, he's probably been there a few times.
Yeah, he's got to go north.
He gets around.
So, you have a gift shop as well. Can you buy fossils?
Yes, we do have rocks and minerals. Gilboa fossils are tough to find enough that we only sell little tiny pieces of roots and stems. But you can, if you get one, you can say, I got a Gilboa one in my collection. There's some real collectors out there that they pressurize me. They want to buy my stumps and stuff. And I'm pretty hard. I didn't have a Euryptrid, which is a sea scorpion in our museum. And it's that's our state fossil, is the Euryptrid. And so this guy finally got to me. He had the most beautiful Euryptrid. And so I traded him a Gilboa stump for his Euryptrid.
Wow.
There are a lot of good books, hiking books, Catskill books. Bob Titus's Catskill book is in there. His glacier book is in there. And there's we have wooden historical toys too. I like natural wooden toys for my grandkids.
Amazing. So, Kristen, I think that's about it that we have. It wraps it up. So, Tad, we'll talk about the stump stash in a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Does that flow with it? So we'll have Kristen. So Tad's got a new little thing called stump stash, and I don't know if that flows in with the stumps of the fossils. We're talking about tree stumps. Does that flow in with that, Tad?
Yeah,
it does. If I can find it, I don't know what happened to it.
Oh, now Tad's screwing up. He's doing everything.
Well, here it is. We just a little technical glitch here at the
whatever studios we call it.
Okay, so this is a new segment I came up with this morning. First question for Stosh. Are you ready? No cheating, no Googling, no asking your spouse or any of the domestic pets. What is the origin of the word fossil? I should have like some theme music here.
Yeah.
What is the origin? Kristen, do you know what the answer is? Don't shout it out. Kristen is shaking her head. She doesn't know. You can't. Stosh, get your hands. He's got his hands on the keyboard. Okay. Do you know? Do you have
something
any idea?
Engraved in time?
No. You need fossil. Fossil comes from the Latin word fossus, which means having been dug up. So I got a smile from Kristen. I'll take that as a win. Of course, it had
to be a Latin word. I knew I should have.
Yeah, obviously, as if the Greeks had any fossils.
Okay. I'm getting some thunder and lightning here now.
See,
I got to pick up the tempo then. Okay, question number 2 is a true false. So Stash, you got a 50-50 shot of getting this one correct. Are there marine fossils on Mount Everest?
Well, that's a good question.
Questions. Are there marine fossils on Mount Everest?
I would have to say true, but nobody cares because they just go to the top and then back down.
Well, it's not whether they care or not, but isn't it? If there are, I'm not giving you the answer yet. If there are, how do they get there? It's like, was the water at one point that high that it was at the top of Mount Everest? Is that what you think, Stosh?
Yes, because
you're wrong. You're completely wrong. There are marine fossils on Mount Everest, but the water wasn't that. No, it was tectonic plates pushed. It pushed the mountain up. So too went the fossils. Okay. But you got the answer correct, so we're going to give you those points. So our third, well, first of all, Stosh, you having a good time? You like this new segment?
Final question. Go.
You're not going to tell me whether you like it or not?
I do. I like it. Oh, Kristen should be answering this.
Yes. All right.
I don't think of that. If it's not about Gilboa, I may not know.
Well, you might. This is a New York State question. Is there any scientific proof that dinosaurs once roamed in New York State?
False.
False? False?
I haven't seen anything yet.
I think there is some, but it's not Devonian. They're much younger than Devonian period, and we
Correct.
usually find the Devonian period. But then you've got the whole Pleistocene era where they found mastodons buried in like Cohoes Falls so you do have overlapping of different types. But the dinosaur, people always think they find dinosaur footprints, but unfortunately it's usually something made by the glacier or water.
Well, according to
I'm sure they did. Yeah, what?
Yeah, according to Dr. Google, yes.
Dr. Google.
fossil dinosaur tracks were found in Rockland County.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for 210 million years ago.
Wow.
That's
dinosaurs.
Yeah. I get that asked a lot of questions about dinosaurs, and I don't know that much about them around here. So that's great information.
You learn two things: where the word fossil came from, and that there's scientific evidence.
And they were on Mount Everest.
Yes. So,
Kristen, make sure you copyright this when you say this at your little exhibits and stuff. You say this was from Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast.
Yes.
No.
We get a plug.
I'm just kidding. But the funny thing is, Tad, you talk about fossils up on Mount Everest. I was up on a 10,000-foot mountain in Canada where I would find fossils, some tracheids and stuff like that. That was really amazing that I would be stepping on something and it's an old fossil of a seashell or something like that. So, all right. So, Kristen, thank you once again for joining us. One last question. We do a thing called post-hike brews and bites. What do you like to do? What would you like to get to eat or drink in the area of the Catskills that you would suggest someone to go to after visiting the Gilboa site?
Oh, definitely go to the upstate Rockland cidery.
Awesome.
Yep. And yeah, they have great, all different kinds of local wine, beer, and, it's not just hard cider or regular cider, but they have the most fantastic music, and it's usually free unless they have like a blues festival or something where they have several bands. It's usually Saturdays from 3 to 6, and it's free.
Sweet. I'll plug them in here and we'll get them hooked up. So, all right. So, Kristen, thank you once again. I'd like to give a big shout out to the monthly supporters and the monthly sponsors. Really appreciate you guys supporting the show. Thank you to everyone who is still listening to the show. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Kristen, for joining us tonight. It was awesome to learn about the fossils. I can't wait to go back to the Gilboa Fossil Museum and maybe explore a little bit more, spend a little bit more time there.
Great. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Kristen.
All right. Have a good night, Kristen, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this, you gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man. Livin.
Wicked.